We all know why we're here. So let me ask you a question then. Why the big secret? Truth seekers, we're really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, truth seekers, we're really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, break it down, now can you peep it? They're deceiving all the people. Let me ask you, what's the secret? Misinformation and lies, a devious disguise. They want the EMF blast until our brains is fried. Oh, point their beams in the sky. Oh, it's a movie now. This world is all CGI. Their plot is truly foul, but we're here to rise up and bring the real. Time is now, truth seekers. Y'all know how I feel. Truth seekers, we're really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we're knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, truth seekers, we're really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, why the big secret?
Why did Ruby shoot Oswald? Was there a conspiracy?
In a world shrouded in darkness and obscured by deception from the big secret keepers, a burning question ignites in the hearts and minds of truth seekers. Why? Let's dive into the abyss of the unknown. Challenge the limits of our understanding.
This bizarre sequence of double killings raised great questions. Who actually fired the shot that killed Kennedy?
Pierce the veil of secrecy.
Cattle found dead and the manner of their deaths are a real mystery.
Anyone who is concerned about lead in the drinking water in Flint.
And venture into the realm of conspiracies and extraterrestrial evidence.
A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Let us consider the question, why the big secret?
All right, everyone. I want to first thank you for being here, and let me get right to the big announcement real quickly so we can get it out of the way, because I'm excited about it, and you should be too, and I hope that you are. As you know, the Forbidden Knowledge 2023 Conscious Awards, there's been nominations for different categories, and now the finalists are all here. So if you go to Forbidden Knowledge, you can go there and see all the different finalists. And you know what? I became one of the finalists, in the TV host category. But now we got to vote all over again so you can pick the actual winner. And so I want you to take the opportunity to vote for me, Roderick. So you can, I made it simple. You can go to voteforroderick.com, put in my name, because you'll see it right there, the 3 finalists. And I'm up against some stiff competition. You got Robert Grant, Theresa Bullard, and myself. But I'm hoping that at this point that I can get your vote to become the winner and represent the Why the Big Secret community, forbidden knowledge, the conscious community, and all of us in this particular space. And so I wanted to throw that out there right now. And once again, right up at the top, voteforroderick.com. And so, but now let me get ready to get into the particulars and open this particular show. So, Truth Seekers, all right. It is Tuesday, and I want to welcome you to Forbidden Knowledge TV. I'm your host, Roderick Martin, and this is the Why the Big Secret show every Tuesday night here at 8 p.m. And as always, you could have been any other place tonight, but you chose to be right here, right now. And with that being said, I like to take the opportunity to do a few things right now, and that is to bid you good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the 24 time zones that this show airs. And that's a big thing. Now, the little background state, I'm located in the Jumbo State. This is where those UFOs come out to play. It's a Texas thing, y'all. And everything come big in Texas, so I got a bold promise to make for you, and that is to be the boldest, baffling, belligerent YouTube channel in the world. We're going to be creating captivating conversations that'll certainly cause controversy, and today is going to be no different, because we're going to go into the Philadelphia experiment. Now, why is it called that? Because it actually happened in Philadelphia. Why not, right? And we're not talking about Philadelphia cheesesteaks today, baby. We're talking about one of the biggest conspiracies of all time, and it has that UFO connection. And so I'm excited for it. Hope you excited. It's been an entire week from being here, but as you know, I advertise or I do shows on my own channel that I have called Why the Big Secret, and you can subscribe there right here and definitely do that. And so get ready. I hope you're ready. I am. We're going to talk about some stuff, and make sure you share this information, and we're going to do that. And so let me get ready and get this music down so we can hop right into what we're going to be talking about right now. And one of the things that I want to say is, what if I told you that there was a top secret experiment that can make an entire ship vanish into thin air? Yes, I'm talking right in thin air, right? Just get out of here. And this is what the Philadelphia experiment that's been shrouded in mystery. It's a lot of secrecy behind it. And one of the most things is everybody's been intrigued with this thing. Now, basically, let me give you some of the details about the Philadelphia experiment, which is widely debated as one of the most mysterious events rumored to have taken place during, I think it was World War II. Now, it's believed that this had involved a top secret U.S. Navy experiment at a Philadelphia naval shipyard. This is why, hence, it got the name, Philadelphia experiment. Now, the thing about this thing was it was aiming to develop technologies for warfare, because we were during World War II. So at this time, we needed all the advantages that we needed. Now, allegedly, this experiment main objective was to make a naval ship invisible to enemy radars and possibly even achieve teleportation. Yeah, we're talking time travel, teleportation. So we're talking, this is back in the 40s, baby. And we're talking where we are today with technology versus back then. It's going to shock you. And I will tie some of that in today for you from there. But as we go forward here, the origin of the Philadelphia experiment story goes all the way back to the 1950s, right? But check this out. Everything changed about this whole thing when a man named Morris K. Jessup, okay, and remember that name, he received a series, not a little bit, but a whole series of letters from an individual named Carlos Allende. Carlos Allende. Now, Allende claimed to have witnessed, he said he witnessed the experiment And he asserted that the U.S. Navy actually had discovered a way to render a ship, which was called the USS Eldred at the time, still is, invisible using electromagnetic fields. Okay. So they're talking about how they were able to put some type of electromagnetic field around this particular ship and therefore hence made it invisible to people, but also it teleported, right? So and then the same guy, he further alleged that the ship had been teleported from Philadelphia, all the way from Philadelphia to Norfolk, Virginia, and this thing came back in a matter of minutes. Now, I don't know how he knew where it went and came back if he was witnessing, but he severally said that he was there. But now this thing turns into a thriller, okay? Because the worst moment was with the crew members that were suffering what people consider bizarre and horrifying side effects, right? Such as being infused, okay? Listen to me. These people were infused in the hull of the ship, where I'm talking like stuck in metal, like they became part of the metal. And then also there was people that they said just disappeared entirely. I mean, they just didn't even know where they went, like poof, gone. But the people that was infused, I mean, go back and look at some of the theories, alleged photos, and I don't know if they're actual photos, right? But basically, they were infused into the ship. Now, this led to a series. I'm talking a plethora of investigations. You're talking books. You're talking even movies. Everybody attempting to uncover the truth behind this alleged experiment. Now, for me, okay, because I wanted to get a little more background on this alleged experiment, I located some information outside of what I just told you that go into a little more details about this experiment, okay? And I have it right here. And these are some forms that I have here on my desk. And basically, let me kind of go in here and read them to you, some things that we have. Now, basically, this was that the crew. All right, let me get to page 1 of this. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there we go. All right. So basically the crew allegedly fought. This was in 1943 is when this happened. It was a U.S. Navy destroyer, was made invisible. And now this came from the Navy History and Heritage Command Center. This is where this information came from. And so they're saying that they got a report that it was invisible. It teleported from Philadelphia to Norfolk, Virginia, and this incident known as the Philadelphia experiments. Now, they're saying records in the archives in the branch of the Naval History Heritage Command have been repeatedly searched. But listen to this. No documents have been located which confirms this event, and any interest by this in the Navy is attempted such achievement. So they're saying that although we hear all these stories and also we hear all of these conspiracies, that no one has actually found some of these documents, but they could be wrong. And I'll show you some of them in a few moments, because actually there was some documents out there that people had. But moving on, they're saying the ship, which was the Eldridge, was involved. Now, they have a lot of ship records. I'm not going to read all this because we got about 3 pages of this stuff that I can go over and give you some real good details. But we will get into the Office of Naval Research later on in the show, because I did find a report from them particularly. It's actually in here somewhere. So we'll definitely get into that as well. But anyway, this also had a different name for this, and we'll get into it in the show. They call it Project Rainbow. And we'll talk about that later on into the show as well. So at this point, we're talking about the significance of this event, okay? And the reason I want to focus on that, because one of the whole basic parts of Why the Big Secret, the show period, is that we want to, talk about events that were big when it happened. A lot of these things were very big when it happened, but they're less talked about today. And the reason for that is there's possibly Why the Big Secret, right? And I think it's important for us to uncover those details, and we'll try to do that throughout the show, because there's a lot of things that happened that was huge and significant in our past, especially when it comes to UFOs, aliens, extraterrestrials, conspiracies. But the cover-up now takes it today with the Big Secret Keepers, where there's not a lot of things happening with this, okay? And so as we get into the Philadelphia experiment here, if it was true Now, this has what we call far-reaching implications. We're talking into science, you're talking about technology, you're talking about the military. And at this time, it was suggested that the advanced and potential world-changing technologies might have been developed and kept secret from the public. And why do I think that? Because we got a lot of technology of stealth today. And so that could add to the thing of why it could have been a big secret. But this experiment raises questions about the lengths that the government would go in order to keep this thing a secret, right? In pursuit of technological superiority among all of the people out there, and the role of secrecy and the cover-ups in what we call a scientific research. So there's a lot of stuff these big secret keepers, and I tell people all the time, especially in the UFO space, that it's about the technology. The technology is one of the main reasons that we're not going to hear everything with disclosure when it comes down to this as well. But as a result of the Philadelphia experiment, this remains a significant yet often what I would consider a forgotten event, right? Again, because it's shrouded in mystery, but it's also the top list of some of these conspiracy theories that we have out there. And then we're going to explore this topic. We're going to gain some insight on the hidden history of this scientific development as well. But I also want you to understand that, you know, there's a big reason why this thing becomes obscured and regulated from the fringes of public memory, why they're trying to wipe this stuff out. And because, again, I'm going to say that I think maybe it happened, and some people can say, well, it didn't happen. So in order for us to go there, I'm going to get into some of the key points of why I think there's one of these things. So we'll get into, and let me put my documents out of the way here, and I'll sit them over here to the side here. But one of the things about the key points is going to be the alleged technology. We're going to dive into some of those claims of being invisible. We're going to definitely dive into teleportation. And when we talk about teleportation, y'all know I'm saying time travel, right? That's all this was associated with this particular experiment. And yet there were some other people, some big names that was around it as well, that we will definitely want to check out as well. Now, let's start with the invisibility. Now, the primary goal of this particular Philadelphia experiment. Now, if you haven't heard about it, you can look it up, and believe me, you're going to be intrigued with the details. Now, according to conspiracy theories, they saying that they were able to render a Navy ship invisible to enemy radar. Now, don't get me wrong. We have stealth technology today, okay? We have stealth fighters, stealth bombers. We have a whole lot of stuff today that has that capability. But I'm not saying this stuff was invented in the 40s. But okay, so trying to, you know, evade enemy radar, I'm okay with that. Electromagnetic field, okay. But teleportation is what drives me more into this thing, and from some of the stories that we hear. Now, the experiment supposedly involved the use of a powerful electromagnetic fields. And what this thing did was to bend the light, okay, around the boat. So when they turned it on, it's supposed to bend light around this U.S. Eldridge, therefore making it undetectable. Now, there's a lot of theories suggest that the technology was used, was based on Albert Einstein's unified field theory, which this was an attempt to merge what they call electromagnetic fields to gravity. And so Einstein had this theory that this could be done. And we'll talk about that later on into the show as well. But this experiment, if it was successful, would have provided significant tactical advantage during the World War II, again, by allowing the Navy to deploy stealth ships that could be avoided detection. Nobody would know who they are. Now, you've seen this in movies. You've seen this particular type stuff in movies, and one in particular would be Star Trek, when they had the bird of prey, the Klingons, remember, where they will be what we call cloaking. You remember that? You have Predator. Remember the movie Predator, when he hit these little buttons on his wrist and it bend light and you couldn't really see them. And there's videos that are on, I think, Facebook and TikTok or one, that they're actually showing a technology where they have this panel and a person walks right behind it with half of their body, and they just it illuminates the light and mirrors back. And so therefore this technology exists. And again, when we see it in movies, we know it exists because that's where they got their ideas from, right? And therefore, they're putting this into the public arena. Now, another extraordinary claim surrounding this experiment in Philadelphia was that the U.S. Eldred was not only rendered invisible. Okay, now here's where it gets tricky. This thing teleported. Okay, it teleported, right? It went from Philadelphia, where it, of course, why we call it the Philadelphia experiment, went all the way over to Norfolk, Virginia. Okay, this whole boat disappeared, teleported over there, and then in a few minutes, it came back. Okay, but again, that's where the stories have it. And there were a countless among a lot of witnesses that witnessed this event that once again go down in history as one of the biggest conspiracies of all time, because this was major when it happened. Again, this claims was based on a testimony of the guy. Remember, I told you earlier, Carlos Allende, right? And he the one who wrote some letters to Morris J. Jessup, and he was describing the event. So this is how it all changed, because according to this Allende guy, he said the ship actually, while he was watching it, he said he was sitting there watching it, and then the ship actually just vanished into thin air. Now, what he did describe, though, he said while he was watching this thing and it vanished, he talked about this blue light. He said there was some kind of like flash of blue light, and this reappeared, and it reappeared in Norfolk before returning to his original location. So he's saying that whenever this thing happened, this big blue light, he was watching it and it just left, and then it came back to Philadelphia. Now, if this is true, this would represent a groundbreaking advancement in transportation technology, right? Because you're talking about enabling rapid movement of troops. They can just put them everywhere. You're talking, equipment, over vast distances. You're talking FedEx being truly FedEx for real, I guess. Not bad shameless plug for them. But the whole point is, as we discuss these claims about this invisibility and teleportation, I just want you to know, I want you to consider the plausibility and the evidence supporting, or you can look up whatever's debunking this particular theory and the potential of the implications of such advanced technology. And while I'm saying that is, we're talking about military strategy. We're talking about scientific development when it comes down to this. And again, this is why we have this. Now, there were some eyewitness accounts and testimonies. Now, we already know our whole legal system, okay, is built on eyewitness testimonies. You could get away with something, literally, and somebody can actually say they saw you physically with their eyes. Oh, I saw him do it. And you can go to jail for the rest of your life. You can probably get the death penalty, whatever it is, because somebody say they saw you. And it's all about witness testimonials. And so here in this story, there was a lot of witnesses. There was a lot of backgrounds. A lot of people went after the witnesses. They went out to the stories of the people who claimed to have witnessed. And then they went out to the people who participated in the experiments who said, but you know what? Here's, for me being an investigator, here's the moment when I felt there was an urge as a truth seeker, I'm a truth seeker, to where we needed what I would call a person of interest in the story. So I took the time to make sure I put this person of interest together so we together can go over this thing. So basically, I thought about I should focus on Carlos Allende, right? And remember this guy. And now previously mentioned Carlos, who he actually had a real name, and his real name was Carl M. Allen. Now, he was the only and primary source of the information when it came down to the Philadelphia experiment. And then, of course, he was the one who claimed that he witnessed the entire thing firsthand. But here's the deal. He was serving on the SS Andrew. Forset is the name of the ship, if I remember. It was a merchant ship, and of course, it was supposed to be nearby, watching or out in the harbor when this thing happened, when the ship teleported, when the ship disappeared. He was actually the one that was watching this thing. Now, he also again wrote a whole bunch of letters to Morris K. Jessup, detailing all of his observations. He's certain that the the U.S. Navy had successfully accomplished the invisibility and teleportation. He's saying it actually worked. And so I got some information on Carlos, and so I have it right here, and we can kind of pull out some of his little background and some stuff. So, and like I said, he became quickly one of my little what I call person of interest, right? And but yet we do have a couple of his documents right here that he actually sent. This is some authentic stuff that he actually sent. And a little backstory, though. Here's the deal. He was supposed to have been born in about 1904. Now, nobody knows what happened to him as well, you know, at this point. And they're saying that he's the one, like I said, that actually sent in all the information. Now, the story goes in 1955, Jessup received a bunch of letters like this at the bottom here from Carlos. Okay. And it's saying, "Dear Mr. Moore," as you can see, there is a whole bunch of more scientific. So this is actual through the mail. This is a actual copy. And this is a U.S. stamp at the time, 15 cents, right? Now, Allende sent this copy to Jessup on, and this guy used it in the book of UFOs, and then he actually had notes, what they consider in the margins, and those notes allegedly was written by two interstellar travelers. Did y'all hear what I just said? Two interstellar travel. Somebody was time traveling. Now, these are things that they don't talk about out here as much. That, yeah, we talk about the ship and what was happening, but no one is really talking about and telling you about that there was actual time travelers who was a part of this entire story. And I have their information here on my desk, and we'll get to that. But this guy is saying that the time travelers, which again, there was some proof that these notes was handwritten by this guy here, which is Carlos or Carl Allen or whatever. But again, there was dozens of books made, and of course you can find his papers at the American Heritage Center. So they've been investigating this, and so this is not something that people had just made up, and they're saying that there's true information out there. So I encourage you to kind of look up these documents just as much as I kind of prep them up for us at this point, but to kind of get into those things. Now, his accounts, Allende's accounts, while most people find them fascinating, and I know I did, but often they say there are a lack of collaborating evidence. A lot of the evidence, was met by a lot of skepticism by many researchers. But then this guy went on tour, and he started actually talking with this. And for me, I'll never forget the tragic ending for Morris K. Jessup. Okay, remember, he's the one that he gave all of these letters to. And when you start thinking about the government, the big secret keepers, and how they protect the secrets, and how people are coming up missing, and all of this stuff, that's when I was like, okay, wait a minute. It is just too many coincidences at this point that some of this stuff may be some truth in this. And then there was reports that Einstein was hanging around that place too. We'll get to that in a minute, but let me give you some backstory on Jessup. Jessup is the one that I just showed you. Allende was sending all these informations to, and then get into his background. And again, it's all about the witnesses, right? It's all about witnesses. As we know, that's how our entire legal system works. When it comes down to the stuff, it's about the witnesses. Now, in this point, this is the guy I'm just showing you right here. His name is Morris Jessup. Now, the story of him, he was born in the 1900s as well, but he also died tragically in 1959. This is right after all of this stuff was coming out. And the reason being, let me just give you some details with him. Now, in 1956, now this guy, once again, died in 1959, so a few years later. But here's some story. I'm going to give you a little backstory of what happened to this dude that lets you know the big secret keepers are not playing. And all right, so anyway, in early 1956, Morris, wrote a book, and his book was called The Case for the UFOs. Okay, now, how do we tie this into the UFOs? We'll get to that in a minute, but this was part of his book, okay? Now he arrived at the office of ONR. We're going to go over who that is as well, which is the Navy Research or Department of Navy or whatever, or ordinary, whatever they want to call these people at this point. This is in Washington, D.C. Now, I don't know how and why his book wind up there, but it definitely didn't end well for him. And we know just now that, there's a lot of stuff that happens out here, and we think it's, just a small matter, but, people take this stuff serious. I think I was watching a movie a long time ago. I don't know if you've seen it, called the Pelican Brief. Y'all remember that movie, The Pelican Brief, by Denzel Washington and what's that, Julia Roberts, and she just wrote this little paper that so happened to be on point, and it made it to the White House, and next thing you know, everybody and their mom, dad was out trying to kill this chick. All right, so anyway, they said the book itself was well known and was contained some handwritten notes. Remember I said that earlier in the comments. At this was at the bottom of the margin. There was words written in 3 different colors, and it had been passed back and forth, and 3 people registering this book. Now I'm gonna move on down here. This book fell into the possession of Major Durrell, and he was with the United States Marine Corps. So imagine this book that this guy wrote because he got some notes from someone else who claimed to have been there and witnessed the experiment, and gave him and sent him out of the blue. And you would think you got this stuff in the paper or in the mail, and you're just excited, like, oh, wow, I am plugged in. Somebody done sent. So it's kind of like a question somebody asked me the other day, Ryder, what if you get some censored information? What are you going to do with it? Because I'm in the field. This is what I do. I'm a UFO investigator, right? And I actually, been on several TV shows, as you can see up here. I just put it on Gaia, twice with George Norrie and Regina Meredith. I've been featured there. Discovery Plus channel, hosting a TV show there. Forbidden Knowledge, the Black Knight Satellite. I'm one of the experts in that particular film. Ancient Aliens, the History Channel. Amazon Prime, I'm in a movie there. Fox Tubi. All of this is surrounding this type of stuff. And I'm like, what would happen if I was to get something? But anyway, this book fell into the wrong hands, okay? It fell into the possession of Major Darnell Ritter, right? And he took interest in these comments, not the book. This guy took interest in the handwritten comments because he's like, okay, wait a minute, this may be some real stuff, right? And so then all of a sudden, Ritter also was aware of the government's short interest in anti-gravity research. So supposedly he's seen the notes. He said, oh yeah, the government is, the big secret keepers are interested. Now, remember, this guy's in the Marine Corps. We're talking about the Navy where all this happening. And you got to remember, even back then and today, we are very, what they call compartmentalized, right? We don't work together. Everything is separate. Not until this last movement of Congress trying to bring everything under one roof. So what the Navy did is what they did. The Army did what they did. CIA, everybody, and they all had their own technologies and the secrets. So you're talking about the Marine Corps gets hold to the book, and he knows they're interested in anti-gravity, but then finding out that the Navy's actually out there trying to pull this off. And of course, he didn't know. But it all ended up with Jessup's death. Okay, you hear me? This guy was killed, and they said that he either killed himself or he'd been killed. This is the story of what's happening in these files. And someone forced him to commit suicide. It's unclear, but they also said he died in a car accident. So there were so many rumors there. Some friends said that this guy wouldn't have done this. I mean, his friends like he wouldn't. Now, I'm not saying that any person wouldn't do certain things at certain points, so I'm not going to go there. But what they're saying, some of his friends said that he was not that type of person, and some of his friends said that they wouldn't expect that he would have killed himself. All right, and this is significant. We'll get to that in a minute. And others suggested that he was murdered because this guy never refused to abandon his UFO research. So obviously, at this point, they connecting the dots. So this book was more handwritten. This is the real book, or not the real book, but his real stuff, right? And so the rumors said that they were circulating about Men in Black. All right, so now we get to hear the infamous Men in Black. So it's in these files right here that The Men in Black was also given to government agencies who allegedly visit several UFO researchers and persuaded them to cease their work. And so at this point, he's missing. He's dead. He's gone. And his research. And he got the stuff from Alalande, Alande, whatever his name, if I'm pronouncing that right. Remember the note that I said that this dude said he had some interstellar travelers that was giving him information as well? We're going to cover that too here in the show. And that's some crazy stuff. Okay. And it's some real crazy stuff. In the meantime, let's get into, we're at the halfway mark, and I want to get into a few things that you, if not already, should be aware of, what is happening, and what is going down. Let's play this right now.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023. The Forbidden Conscious Awards, the first annual event of its type. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. And guess what? It's time to give them their flowers while they're still alive. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person for this amazing level event. It's going to be above the Oscars, above the Grammys. And guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com. And the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. And you want to be there in person because I'm going to be speaking. That's right, I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. If you want to come to a mini conference, this is the place to be because I'm going to give you the knowledge that night as well as performances. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's going to be a night to remember. You don't want to forget this. And you help vote by going to forbiddenknowledge.com. Go to the Conscious Awards link. You can text in a vote for who you want for any category, as well as if you're out of the country, you can use the web form ballot to still vote for anyone you think is worthy of being honored that night. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I want to see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
Man, I hope everybody who's watching this tonight, out of the 600 people that's in here, is going to go to that Conscious Award. It's going to be epic, right? It's one of a kind, first of its kind. Of course, Billy and Elizabeth is putting this show on, and along with everyone else, and it's just a wonderful thing. Now, there is a link in the description of this video where you can go and get your ticket, get 2 tickets, 3, whatever it's going to, man, and we're going to be there. All of us is going to be there. I mean, go to Forbidden Knowledge, and then when you see all of the people that are the finalists for the awards, people that you know and that's out there, you want to come because it's a red carpet event. It's going to be great. And once again, I'm up in the nominee for the television host, and I'm up against some stiff competition, Robert Grant and Teresa Bullock. So if you don't mind, go ahead. If you find value, go ahead and give me a vote. If you've done it before, it doesn't count. We're in the final. So you want to go back, you just check the little radio button, Roderick Martin, really simple. Vote for Roderick.com. It'll take you to that same page, put it in. And man, I will hope to see you there, represent and standing there for the award to represent not only our community, and there's not too many people in my particular culture that is into these UFOs, the conference topics, that's conscious topic, that's out there in the space, especially in ufology. And so I'm just tickled pink. If I can turn pink, probably not. But again, just being nominated by you all and now up for the final vote to actually win the award. So please definitely do that. Let's get back into the story so we can get that. But anyway, it's right up here at the top. I made it real simple. Vote for Roderick.com. It'll take you right on over there. www. or HTTP, not the S. It'll take you over there, and let's do that. So let's get back into the story of where we are right now. And remember, we was just talking about this guy right here, which is Jessup. He's the one who wrote the book, and then it got into the hands of some other military people who describing what actually happened. And he not didn't vanish. He had a tragic death, and people around him saying, "Hey, that's not like him. That's not going to do that." Him doing that. But again, we know the big secret keepers and how they do this. And for me, this situation is when I realized we needed to take a look at a whole nother person of interest when it comes down to this, right? Because anytime that you are looking into these things, you gotta look into the person of interest. And one of the names which came up earlier is Alfred Bielek is his name. If my memory serves me correct. Yeah, Alfred Bielek. Now he's another individual. And according to him, he claimed that he participated in the Philadelphia experiment. Now, this guy said he was in it. Now, according to Bielek, and then he had a brother named Duncan, and Duncan Cameron is his brother's name. Now, they actually were supposed to be stationed on the boat itself when the experiment took place. They were actually sailors or whatever they called them back then when this happened. Now, here's where it gets strange. Bielek claimed that while they was out and they was doing whatever the chores on the boat, mopping or wherever, and they all kind of knew that they was under some type of program, but they just didn't know how it went. And what he was saying was that while they was out, and of course the water was calm because they're in this bay in Philadelphia, and he was saying that he suspected that there was a powerful, listen to me, a powerful electromagnetic fields, okay, that was generated during the experiment, okay, which resulted in them being thrown forward, not forward falling into the water, not forward that he fell into the boat or whatever. He's saying when this electronic field went around, it resulted him and his brother Duncan Cameron thrown forward into the year of 2031. Y'all hear me? So this guy said that he was jolted forward and he went. Now I don't know how he came back and he went to 2031, but I do have some information on what he described, how he knew that he wasn't where he was. Now, Bielek later recovered these memories. Now, just like anybody else, he had what they call regression therapy, where they can go back and put you under hypnosis, and then he was able to recount a lot of his stories. And he did a lot of interviews out there. He went to a lot of conferences, but however, I mean, a lot of his accounts has been criticized due to, number one, being inconsistent. He was very inconsistent in some of these, and then some of this stuff just could not be verified. And how can we these days? Okay. And so for me, because I wanted to do more research and I wanted to get a little more teeth into this research, I decided I wanted to go deeper into this Alfred guy. And what I found, and when I did do that, this is when I realized the sugar honey iced tea has gotten real when it comes down to the Philadelphia experiment. And I'm just serious. And however, before I give you the details regarding Alfred, let's keep going, and then we'll come back to him because it's going to tie all of this together. So now, again, there was other accounts. There was also alleged, eyewitnesses. There was participants. There was a lot of people who came forward to this. I mean, tons of people. But again, their accounts were largely discredited. Everybody went after them. Inconsistencies, the lack of evidence. Even some people were was proven as hoax. And so you're going to get this. The big secret keeper is going to make sure that they mix and match all of this stuff right across the board, making sure people do and don't do these things. And so as we explore these accounts of eyewitnesses, we'll go to a couple of more, but it's important, once again, that you can do your own research, this, because you should. There's a lot of information, a little bit out there, and examine the credibility a lot. So you can weigh some of the available evidence that's out there, and then you can also determine what stories you want to provide that could be substantiation, to the claims out there, could be substantiated, was the word I'm saying, and do that. But one of the things that I always like to do, once again, is get into the why. Okay. The why behind it. And remember, the objective of the show, if you just arrived, has always been the question, the name of the show, why the big secret? And that's an important question, because I'm always going to tell you, your eyes are useless, right? When your mind is blind, it is basically time to think why. Okay. And I say this because a lot of people don't take the time. And there's a book that I read, and I'll never forget this book. It's George Orwell's 1984. And in his book, George has a quote that he was talking about one of the situations. And this has probably propelled everything that I think about mostly. And in this quote, he says, I understand how. So he was explaining what was happening in the genre back then. But he said, I don't understand the why. And that is probably one of the most important things, takeaways, that if you want to get in any situation, because how is not as important as the why. And I don't care what the deal is. When you watch something on the news and you hear how it's done and what they was doing, and that's where most people stop for information. They just want to know what happened. Tell me what happened. Tell me what happened. You better focus on why it happened. And anytime you begin to go look into the why, and which is the whole theme of our show, is why the big secret, things that was big like this, that when it happened, it was huge. But why the big secret today? Why is it less talked about today? Who's covering it up? Who's doing all these things so that we don't know? And we can go into our past, from religion to, Native, African Americans. We can go, the key of covering the past, who controls the past can control the future. Never forget that. Okay. So anyway, let's talk about the government, okay? And we can investigate the possibilities of the government cover-ups, and then we can get into some of the reasons why they're keeping this experiment a secret, because it has to be a reason. And then when I realized that I had a big problem when I started to research some of this current information, because at first I was using like my computer, and I was like, let me Google some of this stuff, right? Let me use some of the other databases that I have access to. And I was really disappointed that the topic was lesser talked about today, because I couldn't really find stuff that I was looking for. And I always thought this was big when it happened in 1943. It was huge. I mean, you're talking teleportation, you're talking a ship, and people getting all infused into the metal when they came back. In other words, they in the ship became one. Yeah, they crossed paths and they became one. And the question remains, why the big secret? Why is it not talked about? Why are they covering it up? And that's when I realized there was a few motives. They got a few motives to do that. And okay, we can talk about the military. We can go into the Philadelphia experiment. We could talk about, the technology used to render these ships or teleport them, or whatever was provided the military the advantage back in World War II. And we can also just say there's many reasons the government want to keep an experiment like this a secret, because they don't want other enemies learning from the technology and potentially replicating it and using the tech against us. So there's a lot of stuff there. And then we can talk about classified information, right? Which, here's the deal, though. Listen to this. This Philadelphia experiment could have been part of something bigger, okay? And there is a rumor that it was something bigger. And so we always seem to hear names and stuff of some of this stuff that's out there, but it's really not the there's always something bigger. And then they're giving us like lower level names. And I think that's just a way for them to hear what's going on the street. And so the government may kept the details of this experiment probably a secret, because they want to protect sensitive information. That's always right. Classified information. You want to protect that. You want to protect the research. You want to make sure it don't fall into the wrong hands. Nobody wants that. But by the way, that bigger research also was referred to as Project Rainbow. I don't know if you know about that. If you're watching this, put it in the chat. Project Rainbow. All right. And so that you know, there was a whole comprehensive search of archives that have failed to identify records for Project Rainbow. A lot of people looked into that relating to teleportation. or simply trying to make a ship disappear, right? And this is in the 1940s. So things but what I found and what most people found is that Project Rainbow was a code name referred to Rome, Berlin, Tokyo, the axis. Yeah. So Rome, Berlin, Tokyo axis. Now, Rainbow was the war plans to defeat Italy, Germany, and Japan. Now, Rainbow V, the plan that was in effect on December 7, 1941, and this is when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and this was the plan that they was using to fight the Axis powers, is what they called it, right? And so that there alone had its own, but it didn't have anything about it had the Philadelphia experiment, but nothing about time travel, teleportation. And so it's like somebody was trying to confuse some of the stuff anyway, right? And then you got public, perception. And then as always, you got panic. I tell people all the time, there's a lot of times there's just stuff that they're not going to tell people because you can't tell everybody. And if you remember the movie Men in Black, and when Will Smith was sitting on that bench before he made the decision to join them. And he looked over at Agent K and he said, "Hey, why the big secret?" Ha! Right? That's what he said that. That's what the name. All right. He says, "Why the big secret?" He says, "People are smart." And K said, "Nope. A person is smart. One person is smart, but a bunch of people is dumb and stupid." Okay. And the government knows that because they know it can cause panic. And I can go all the way back to the Brookings report. Look it up. It's on page 230 or 400, one of them. And the Brookings report was sanctioned back then by NASA and the government at the time when they were thinking about revealing UFOs, aliens, and extraterrestrials to the public back in the 40s and 50s. And so they got this Brookings institution to do a case study to how we, the people, truth seekers, will react to the stories. And lo and behold, because of what we do have in place today, the Brookings report came back and said, don't tell them nothing. They can't handle it. The public cannot handle the truth when it comes down to extraterrestrials and aliens and all of this stuff, and thus became the biggest cover-up of all times, and it's still happening, but yet we're now trying to push for disclosure. And so we'll see about that. Now, back to this part here, if this experiment involved advanced technology, and it also resulted into the consequences such as alleged teleportation, I can see why the government might have chosen to keep it a secret and creating panic or confusion among the people, right? I'm not saying that I'm with the big secret keepers, but there are just some things that you're not going to tell everybody. And then when you're talking about science and technology, and we know today scientists do not want to go down a road past evolution versus DNA and, could we have been brought here? Are we the aliens and all of those stories? No, we evolved from these little two, upright bipedal apes, walking folks, and now we turn into the humans that we are today. And I think it's a good idea for us to discuss these implications of the Philadelphia experiment, allegedly, the scientific part of it, the technology part of it. So what I want to do, I'm going to begin with what about the scientific impact of science and technology? And I think it's a good driving point to go there. And this is when I realized there was another huge connection when I started doing research on the story, when I was looking up this part. And this was big, like I said, when it happened, but just like everything else, the entire experiment, this is not talked about today. And so I think about the following stuff that in my mind of what we can do. And one in particular is the validation of that unified field theory by Einstein, right? And it's something that we definitely should and want to look at. And I did have a little information on that right now that we can go with that. But anyway, it claims that the surrounding Philadelphia experiment, if it was true, would have proved the evidence supporting Einstein's unified field theory, potentially revolutionizing what we call today the understanding of physics, okay? But there was some backstory rumors that he actually was there Einstein was part of this thing, or actually was part of it. And so I got some information on his little thing here so we can kind of see what we're dealing with. But at this point, I just got a clipping that this came out in the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken. And it was saying that Albert Einstein coined the term. He coined the term unified field theory, which describes the attempt to unify fundamental forces of physics. Okay. And this is between what he called the elementary particles into a single theoretical framework. Now, he spent the latter part of his research for such unidentified theory. Some say he wasn't successful. And what do we know? Do we know a lot of his stuff? And again, this was right here in the newspaper. Here's a headline that he was offering the new theory to unify laws of the cosmos. He was about to release that information. Here's a kind of a picture for you scholars. Let me put it here of a part of this equation. I don't know if you can read it, but if you can, check it out. I can't tell you what the CH and all that mean, but whatever this was part of the equation that he was figuring out. And believe me, I don't know who can sit there and write some stuff like this. And if you're a chemist, or if it takes a chemist, or whatever it is, but if your mind works like this, more power to you for doing that. But anyway, we're talking again about advanced technology and stealth. Now, like I said, we know if they're going to come to invisibility. In fact, I have a book, and let me see about. I did put it over here. Yeah. And this book is the B-2 Bomber Spirit. Okay. And this thing, look at that. Okay. And this is the history of this thing. It's been around for quite some time that we have stealth bombers. Let me kind of go back if I can find some of the technology. But this stuff, these things render invisible when they're flying around right now. Okay. And don't believe that this is not alien tech or some type of technology reverse engineered. We didn't just think this stuff up to know that if we shape it in this certain way, and we're talking bombers, we're talking all kinds of stuff that's out here, and this stuff evades enemy radar. And so we have a whole legend of these things. And so this could be the reminiscences of the Philadelphia experiment, right? Because that's what they was trying to do. The Navy was trying to create the ships to make sure that they ran invisible. So they definitely was trying to do that. So why not, right? So we can kind of look into that across the board to kind of see what we're talking about. Now, again, this experiment could have laid the groundwork for what we have. So actually, once again, you're talking military aircraft, you're talking ships, because we got like invisible Navy ships that's out there. So we have them. And so it's not like that this stuff don't really, go down. And now we're talking about teleportation, though. Now, if the claims was proven true for teleportation, you're talking about a whole nother ball game. But I'm going to share with you some stuff in a minute that we're going to get into. Now, this is okay. On the good side of this, will enable people to move goods and services, like Star Trek. Remember Star Trek? They push this little thing and they go away and come back, right? Y'all remember that? Well, all this is part of the technology, and you're talking global trade, and you're talking, if I'm making sense to say that, but they're not going to worry about global trade. They're not going to introduce this into the mainstream for people to use. They're going to use it for military applications. They're going to use it for, weaponizing this thing to do this. And so once again, we're talking Stargates. You're talking about all of this stuff. And so one of the things for you, I just want to encourage any of you, share your thoughts in the chat here tonight. Share the plausibility of the Philadelphia experiment and the reasons that you think the secrecy behind this thing, right? And definitely, I want you to think about the alleged technology of this thing and the potential implication for modern science, modern military. Engage in this conversation. Make sure you like and share, but definitely get down off in there. And then also, look into some of these eyewitnesses accounts, because you're going to get some crazy stories when it comes down to that. I'm serious. There are some stories out there that you will probably be like, what? And we're going to cover, and we actually covered a bunch of that. We'll cover a little more, but one of the things about it is, why does this thing remain the big secret out there? It just remained that. I really don't know. But what we will do is give you some present day documents here. I got one here that I want to share with you. And it's declassified. It comes from the Navy themselves. Now, again, while no evidence has been found in the recently declassified sections out there, there's not really documents to confirm it. But the Navy actually wrote their own response, because there was a lot of people started calling them, saying, hey, you need to tell us something. You need to blah, blah, blah. And so they suggested that there indeed was conducting some experiments. They said that to make ships less detectable, is what they were saying, right? They're saying that, all right, we're not going to confirm the Philadelphia experiment, but we have tried to make sure that our ships can go on the enemy radar. Why? It makes sense to do that, right? And so when you hear them saying that they're admitting that, but they're not going to admit that people were like infused into the whole, then there's one of the things. And so I ended up looking on to the Navy, the Department of ONC, which is the Department of the Navy. So there's their Science and Technology Division, right? And so they'll usually tell you what it is. And you can actually literally go to their sites and get some of this information that is now declassified. But the way they wrote this up, though, kind of tell you like they're trying to play with us, the truth seekers, and like they got some humor. And one of the things here is in this particular document is that they're saying over the years the Navy has received innumerable inquiries about the so-called, and their words are just kind of creepy, so-called Philadelphia experiment or project, and the alleged role of the Office of Research, which is the Navy. The majority of these inquiries are directed to the Office of Naval Research or to the 4th Naval Division in Philadelphia. This is an actual come from verbiage from them. And the frequency of these inquiries predictably intensifies, is what they're saying, each time the experiment is mentioned by popular press, often in a science fiction book. So they're trying to throw shade out there. They're trying to throw shade right off the bat that it's in science fiction books. And then, when people start talking about it, in other words, if it starts taking a life on its own, then of course we're talking about it. Of course, the people are curious about what is happening, and they're saying, no, we're not going to deal with that. So anyway, the genesis of this experiment goes back to 1955. I said that in the beginning of the show, with the publication studies by this guy, Morris K. Jessup. Now, the Navy, this is on their website, okay? They're saying that they actually, they're saying in their book that it's all started from him. And remember, somebody got a hold to his book, and then this dude, Morris, was killed, okay? And so the Navy is trying to say, it all started from him, but somebody bumped this dude off, right? This is true history. This guy, he exposed the story. Now, he was telling his accounts from someone else. Now, it also says sometime after the publication of this book that he received correspondence from a Carlos Allende, who gave his address. Now, they had the address of all these people who were coming up missing, right? They got your address, right? And they're saying that this dude, so start putting two to two together, right? Start trying to say, was there some truth behind this? And they're saying there those officers who were shown, and I'm not going to go into all the detail of all of these forms, which I have, and I can read it all down to you. Probably our website will be finished next week, and a lot of this stuff will go up on the website. You can pull it down. I'll put it up in there. But basically, the bottom line is they do not believe such experiment could be possible in the realm of science fiction, but it could be in the realm of science fiction. So they're saying it can't be possible in real life, but if people are going to make these stories up, then they definitely can make these stories up. And that was their final disposition on this. And so, but again, the guy came up missing. Okay. He was bumped off. Now, we're going to do some evidence against, or let's contradict some of this stuff, right? Despite the claims, the testimonials that we've hearing about it, again, there's not been any concrete evidence until we get ready to get into this last file that I have here. This one changes a lot because many of the skeptics out there argue that the story is mixed, it's misinterpreted, it's got hoaxes involved, it has, got a little truth here, a little sprinkle on it, a little stuff there. And then in the recent years, the scientists have made all kind of remarkable advances of cloaking technology without this, right? We know they have. I just showed you the stealth materials. We're talking invisible objects to the human eye. We got all of this stuff that's going on right now. And nobody's trying to point to where it begun, because if they do point back to it begun at the Philadelphia experiment, then all that we know is true. And the people that got bumped off is true. But what I'm about to get into here is what changes the ball game. And it changed it for me, and hopefully it's going to change it for you, because it's something that we need to think about, especially when it comes down to these advancements that they're trying to say is not direct to the Philadelphia experiment or whatever we want to call it. They call it, or Project Rainbow. But do you remember when I said that a person of interest was named Alfred Bielik? Y'all remember I mentioned that name earlier? And I said, well, let's put him to the side because he's really significant in what we're talking about. And so when I started looking at this, listen to me closely. Here's the moment when I could see my work as a truth seeker contributes to this thing, right? What I call the greater good, because I went a little deeper and to start looking into him, because I was like, you know what? Let's just check out everybody. Because remember, they used the name interstellar people that was at this point, and that's what caught my attention. So here's what happened when I decided to go look up this Alfred guy, right? I was like, okay, let me go look him up. You got some documents on him. And while I said he was 100% a person of interest, we got to always do that when we find out. And then I realized I had a big problem with the story when I finally dug deeper into the guy's story. I was like, wait a minute, I got a problem. And well, okay, we're going to spend a little time on this guy's part because it's going to tie in some dots. Okay. And his name is Al Bielik. Now, listen to me closely when I give you a description of some stuff with this dude. They say he was approximately born in 1927. No one knows anything else. Okay. Now, he was a self-proclaimed time traveler. Okay. He said he was. And he made horrible, like predictions that the World War III is getting ready to happen, which he said a long time ago. And he said would break out in the year of 2025. Now, looks like we're heading in some of those directions, but it's coming. I don't know. But he also claimed that the future would be no government. Now, we talked about on many shows about the New World Order. We talked about, the Bilderberg groups. We talked about all of these things. Now, here is a time traveler talking about this stuff years ago. And there was a lot of claims that he made. And so I'm going to go with some of the stuff that I found. And like I said, we're going to focus on this dude because he's going to tie all this in together. And this is why we do what we do. This is why we search and go into the big secret. So let me kind of give you a background about this guy. Now, he claimed to be a time traveler who said that nuclear war would break out on Earth in 2025. So that's 2 years from now. He also said that an elusive figure, a lot of people thought he was born in 1927, but he passed away in 2011, claiming that he spent 2 periods of time living the future. So he'd been back and forth, okay? He said he was transported to the year 2113, where he witnessed flying mega cities, futuristic technology, as well as another period of travel to the year of 2025. That's 2 years from now. In that year, which he claims apocalyptic nuclear war broke out. People, this dude is on the record. He's on the record because remember, he was on the boat. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, he was one of the people on the boat that happened. Now, Bellick claimed that he was part of something called the Philadelphia experiment. This is when he came back and started telling people, and that a series of top secret tests conducted by our military during the Second World War II to try to create a warship that would be invisible. He claimed that he recalled his memory, listen to me, from the age of 9. He's saying when he was walking around as a little baby at 9 years old, he claimed his memory from 9 months old, where he said the family Christmas party, he could understand conversations the adults was having in the room around him were having. He was 9 months old. All right. So we know about past lives. We know about all this kind of stuff. Okay. But this guy is saying at 9 years old, he knew, and that he already been, and there's more. Let me get to the next page, which is going to tie some stuff to us to this point. And it's something worthy for us to really look into, because he said when he was 16 years old, he joined the U.S. Navy to fight the Second War, which is where he claimed he first traveled to. Now, he could have been regressed to past lives, right? We know that exists, okay? But he said that recounting his time travel experience, Bellick said in 1943 that he and his brother jumped off a ship to escape a strange light. And when they rose to the surface, they had reportedly been transported to 2013. Remember, I said that in the first part of the story, that there was 2 people who said that they saw this light, right? And then they jumped into the ocean, but they kept falling. And I didn't really figure out who it was, but then later on come out as him. And I didn't think, okay, I thought they was regular sailors. But this guy actually came back. He did speaking engagements. He started talking. He's telling everybody about his experiences. He's saying he'd been back and forth. And supposedly the prediction in the next couple of years that we have this fallout. And then, of course, later on, there's no governments, hence New World Order. We know that that's been going on for some time. And maybe it takes 100 and some more years for them to achieve that. But what also stuck out, he said, when he expected to hit the water in the bay to swim ashore, when him and his brother, they kind of like, okay, let's get off this thing. They jumped into the water, thought they was jumping into the water. So they thought when they went overboard the ship, remember they felt this jolt. Remember I told you that something threw them, away, when they was, mopping or whatever they was doing on the boat. Remember I said that earlier, and he said that he saw this light, and then they were thrown. Okay. So now he's saying that he was thrown, but there was no water. All right. They never hit the water. He said they kept falling and falling and falling for quite some time period. And he said this in an open lecture. This guy he's not just making this stuff up. He's out there. This guy is out there telling his story. Okay. He is telling his story. And I'm not saying that people believe him, but there's other people dying around this thing. All right. And so he also said that what stood out the most, that he knew something was up. He knew that he was not where he came from, because he said that he claimed that there were very surviving cities, okay, he says, around the world, and no national governments, all right, and there was no borders. And he said that he spoke with a supercomputer. Get that? I mean, wait a minute, I can stop right here. Because I'm talking about AI. We're talking about all this stuff. We're talking about what could have happened with this chat GPT and all of the New World Order. So here is a time traveler, ladies and gentlemen, and whatever your pronouns are, that he's saying that this is happening. But he's also calling predictions that we can see heading in those directions. So he's saying that now there's a supercomputer running things. Okay, we've been talking about this chat thing, and you saw the show that I did, and the guy who made the chat said that they can't control it. They're not going to shut it down. It's going to put people out of jobs. It has a threat. There's so much happening with this thing, And then this guy says what he says, and then he says in 2025, which is 2 years from now. Now, don't get me wrong. I was around when 1989, when it was, I forget what they call it, Y2K. I was a young kid. And everybody was saying the computers wasn't going to work. The clocks was going to stop. We didn't have no technology to go to 2001. And Prince made a song back then. He's going to party to 1999. It was a big deal. And we were in apocalyptic era at that time. We survived it. Okay. But this dude is throwing some good stuff out there. Okay. So when he says that there was no national governments, no borders, and he spoke, he said he spoke to a supercomputer. He talked to the computer. All right. And it told him, this is what the computer said. The computer told him. I'm not making this up. Look, I'm serious. This is true stuff. I got this stuff out of the right place. He said the computer told him that the project had started in the year 2600 to reform the global systems. Now, there's a lot of research that my research and I have done about extraterrestrial life, a lot of this stuff. And there's the Galactic Federation. There's so much terminology. And supposedly Earth is just light years behind. And what we see today is nothing compared to what's out there, and that we're just so far behind, and everything that's already created and will be created has already been created. Okay. And so he's saying there's no militaries. And he says no military existed with military conflict, none existed, and everybody was now free. So how does economics work? Does people have free food? I don't know. But he also claimed that most of England, listen to this though, right? England, we just saw what happened to the monarchs, disappeared through Scottish Highlands, and some of Ireland remained, much of Europe being underwater. This guy saying that Europe went underwater, that it's sinking, and he's talking about all this stuff, and he's a time traveler. Okay. And I don't know about y'all, but it is something to think about when you think about some of the stuff that this dude was talking about. All right. And we can dive deeper into what I call the why aspect of this thing, and you know, what's really happening. We can go through broader implications of the Philadelphia experiment for society, the potential dangers. We can go into the secrecy of scientific research. We can even talk about ethical consideration, like secret experiments, and like the Philadelphia experiment, where it raised a lot of ethical implications that was conducting research without the public knowledge and without nobody's oversight. And this is happening, people, all the time. And the potential for this to harm human subjects, because our military, we're talking about Tuskegee Airmen experiment. This has been done a lot, where they are using people as guinea pigs without even knowing, testing stuff. In this case, people come back and they're part of the metal ship. And now we got time travelers who said he went to 2031. And one of the stories I read about it, that he knew because at that time, there wasn't any color TVs and stuff. So he said when he got there was these televisions, and it was all embedded into these walls. And he just knew he was in a whole different place. And so what do we draw the line when it comes down to? That's a question for national security and interest in the responsibility to inform the public. Where do we say the people should know what is happening? Although we know that we have spies and all these other people listening, where do this come into play? And is it acceptable? That's something I want you to think about. And think about the role of the government. Think about this Philadelphia experiment, how it brings up questions about how the government is funding. They're directing, they're regulating the scientific stuff. So they're putting it in these private contractors. So we cannot use 4 acts. I talked about that before. And another question is, how much control does the government have over the direction of some of this stuff? And also, how are they disseminating information? And again, we can't think about the secrecy of all of this stuff, right? We know that we really, truly, as people, as truth seekers, have to look at this. And then lastly, we're talking about public trust. We're talking about stuff that we, the people, the truth seekers, you know, we want to trust the institutions. We want to trust what's going on. And I'm using this Philadelphia experiment, because I'm saying it was shrouded in a lot of mystery, but it had the makings of everything. You're talking teleportation, you're talking about the plans, people, witnesses, people being killed. This thing had the whole plot for a great movie. Okay, it really does. It's probably why they made so many movies behind it anyway. Okay, but let's get to some of the takeaways here before we get out of here. One of the things that we want to truly for you to consider, and make sure you post some of this in the comments, okay? And let me know if you like information like this. Let me know if I covered some stuff for you without pretty detail. Some of this stuff is things that I've studied, and like I said, we explored some of the insights. We explored some of the classified documents that we talked about. We talked about some of the implication from the secrecy of being scientific research. We talked about the role of the government, what could happen to the people. And so as we uncover the big secrets surrounding the Philadelphia experiment, really we can see the importance that the reason behind their obscurity. There's a lot of stuff to why we should know about. In this case, raises all the questions and balance between national security, as well as public trust, as well as the government, as well as regulating scientific information, as all this stuff. This one here has it all. And once again, though, we have to explore this stuff. We have to understand where we're going with this. And so as I get ready to come to a close, I got a couple of questions that I want to just throw out there to you, something for you to think about, something for you to think, is it worth considering what we're talking about here? And the question would be, let's say if this Philadelphia experiment did exist, did happen, right? What does it tell us about the potential advanced technology that's hidden from us, the role of secrecy in the research? You know, is there something that we understand that are the other similar events? We know there's other technologies that remain hidden, but again, is that something that we want to deal with? Do we want to deal with? So I'll leave you with this a little bit. One of the things that the Philadelphia experiment taught me, okay, is that you can compare this to what I consider the telephone game. Y'all know that, right? Which a story is passed from one person to another, becoming more distorted. Remember they used to do that when we was kids, where you sit there and they will say, okay, and it goes down, and by the time it gets to the other person, the information is just totally changed. This is one of those things that this remind me of. The core of the story has been based on actual military experiments with, technology. And then all of a sudden, this was about making these ships disappear. And then all of a sudden goes into teleportation. All of a sudden it goes into time travels, people getting killed. And it just keeps going. And so I don't know. But anyway, I just want to thank each and one of you for watching the show tonight. And I hope that our explorations of this Philadelphia experiment has sparked your curiosity to, kind of encourage you to go more deeply. Go look it up. Go look up some of this information. You'll do some research. You're going to look up some of the potential hidden technologies out there from there. And again, I love to hear your thoughts on the topic, as well as any suggestions for future episodes. Make sure you put it in the comments below. And don't forget to go to my Instagram, subscribe to my Instagram, which is at the bottom of the screen, Real Roderick Martin. You got the Twitter handles, Roderick Martin. Then, of course, the YouTube channel is at Why the Big Secret. All of those things, because, we do some other stuff there. But in the meantime, if you stay curious, question everything, right? And always remember, your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. So it's definitely time to think why. And as always, I can say to my haters, I say it all the time, if you can hate me without ever meeting me, I can love you without ever meeting you. All right, good night, everyone, and hopefully everything is where we need to be. Are y'all still here? Show's over. Go home. Good night.